If you're a professional looking to change your career into project management, watch this because I'm going to be breaking down step by step exactly what I would do if I was in your shoes to increase my chances of success of becoming a project manager. And I say this as being a successful project manager for the last 8+ years, working across multiple different industries, including retail, banking, and manufacturing. Before I get to the steps that I would use to actually transition into project management, I want to share with you guys the golden rule in project management. And the golden rule is that anyone from any other discipline or any other domain can become a project manager, but those who only study project management can only stay in project management. So if you're coming from IT, if you're coming from network, if you're coming from engineering or from education, whatever background you're coming from, you can leverage those skills in project management and transition into project management. However, if you only studied project management in school, you did a bachelor's in project management, you got your PMP, and all you really know is project management, but you don't have any other expertise in any other domain, then you likely will only be able to remain within the project management discipline. And the reason this is true is because there are projects in literally every single domain. So you can find projects in finance, you can find projects in IT, you can find projects in cybersecurity, you can find projects in manufacturing. And so if you're coming from any other discipline, you have what's known as domain knowledge. And that knowledge is very valuable because when you're managing specific types of projects that deal with that subject matter expertise, you have some background, some context to it, and you can add value to the project. And so if I was to give you an example here, imagine someone who's been working as a developer for the last 10+ years, and they have quite a bit of experience in programming and development and debugging and testing. And all of this knowledge now, if they want to transition into project management, they would be very well suited for projects managing software upgrades or application upgrades or application builds because they have domain knowledge and expertise in that area already. And so their transition into project management from a developer to a project manager who's managing software projects, they would just need to pick up on the soft skills, pick up on the project management knowledge and project management processes and tools. And so they could easily come in and start managing software development type projects. Now, I want to be clear here is that you don't need to be an expert to transition into project management. In other words, you just need to have working knowledge or basic knowledge in a specific area or discipline in order to actually be a project manager. So I'll give you my example. I am not very technical. I don't have any formal technical training, but I work on IT tech projects. So I work with servers, I work with databases, I work with networks, but I'm not the expert here. But what I do have is a little bit of working knowledge where I can talk a little bit about servers and databases. And so when I'm working with the network engineer or the database analyst, at least we can have a productive conversation and I can keep the project moving forward. I can ask the right questions to keep the project moving forward. So by no means do you need to be an expert in the area to be able to manage projects. If you are a developer and you're an expert in that area, that can only help you in managing these projects. So it will just add more value and increase your ability to successfully manage that project. And so the reason I share the golden rule here in project management is that I want to share with you guys that whatever background you have, whether it's from manufacturing, whether it's in operations or logistics, that is very valuable as long as you decide to lean on that experience when you come into project management. And you won't be starting from scratch. You'll actually be bringing that experience, bringing that knowledge, bringing that value into your next role as a project manager. So what would I do if I was in your shoes and wanted to transition into project management? I'm going to keep this a little generic here so that it will apply to as many people transitioning from all the different disciplines that are out there. So you could be transitioning from education, you could be transitioning from fitness, you could be transitioning from IT or tech, whatever discipline you're in. These are the steps that I would follow to increase my chances of success. The first thing I would do is I would actually try to learn project management and try to go a little bit behind the scenes of what project management is actually like. So if I was already working, I would try to connect with the existing project managers at the company and see if I could shadow them and see what are they doing on a day-to-day basis? What are they working on? What kind of conversations are they having? What kind of meetings are they in? And so by exposing myself to actual project managers in their day-to-day work, I would be familiarizing myself with what I would need to be doing as a project manager. So that would be the first step that I would do is try to shadow somebody. And if I don't have that opportunity, then I would at least try to find something online where I can try to go behind the scenes and see if someone is able to share what project management is like on a day-to-day basis. Additionally, I'd obviously take courses like Google Project Management Certificate courses or courses on Coursera about project management, because those are great courses which are going to give me the knowledge and information that I need to be able to actually manage projects. And so many people believe that they already kind of know project management because they've been exposed to it at work, but the formal side of project management, the formal discipline of project management, of actually taking projects from initiation to closure, can be quite different. And so you need to familiarize yourself with that knowledge, with that vocabulary, so that when you're actually in an interview, you can speak intelligently like a project manager and convince the recruiter or convince the hiring manager that you know what you're talking about, that you know how to actually manage projects. The second thing I would do is I would reinforce my learning by actually gaining hands-on experience. So everything that I learned in step one, in taking those courses and job shadowing a project manager and trying to go behind the scenes of what project management is actually like, I would then try to implement that in a real environment by actually trying to create my own project, create a project at home, and actually going through the project lifecycle, initiating a project, creating a project charter, creating a scope document, creating a project plan, creating a schedule, tracking risks and issues, tracking dependency, and then closing out a project. I would actually go through that even if it was a mock project at home or a simulation online or even a real project that I might do for someone on a volunteer basis. That is so critical for you, because you want to get the actual vocabulary instilled in your brain, so that when you start talking to people, start talking to recruiters and hiring managers, you once again are coming across as a professional project manager, someone who's done this before. You've been in your existing industry, in your existing role for so long, you're likely going to speak in a certain way, speak with a specific vocabulary. And so if you want to transition now into project management, these first two steps are about kind of rewiring your brain and to start thinking and acting and talking like a project manager. The third thing I would do when I'm transitioning into project management is I would start to focus specifically on the soft skills. What I've realized in my 8-year career as a project manager is that your soft skills are way more important than your technical skills. You don't get hired for technical skills. You always get hired for your soft skills. And so if you lack on technical skills, but you are very high in your soft skills, then you will still probably get hired over someone who's just very technical but has no soft skills. And so there are actually 8 specific soft skills that I would focus on that would increase my chances and increase your chances of becoming a project manager, because these are the actual skills that you use on a day-to-day basis to be effective as a project manager. And so I'm going to list these skills out for you here one by one. And if you focus on these skills and you really increase your proficiency in these skills, you can be a very effective project manager. And these are skills that will stick with you for the rest of your life. And so the skills that I recommend are communication, leadership, organizational skills, time management skills, problem solving skills, emotional intelligence skills, relationship building skills, and presentation skills. If you focus on just these 8 skills, you will be a killer project manager and you will stand out during interviews. After having done step 1, 2, and 3, after having familiarized myself with project management, after having gotten some hands-on experience and reinforced my learning, and after having improved my soft skills, which again is probably going to be a lifelong continual process, after having done those 3 things, only then would I shift my focus on the resume and on the LinkedIn profile. And this is where I would try to create a consistent narrative between my past jobs and what I'm looking to do now. So if I'm trying to transition into project management and I've been a developer my whole life, I want to create a narrative in the resume that shows, hey, I went from a junior developer to a lead developer to a project lead developer or a lead developer on a project. And then from there, I went into a technical project manager role. And then from there, I went into a project manager role. And so if you can create a narrative like this that shows a storyline that you've been progressing throughout your career, that you have been taking more responsibility and entering more leadership roles and more customer facing roles and roles where more stakeholder interaction is required, if you can create that narrative, then you're going to be able to come across as much more believable that you are a project manager, that you are high value, that you are a leader, and you can actually take on this role of managing large-scale deployments and implementations and upgrades and stuff that project managers do. And I want to share a couple of points here. When you are transitioning to a new career or just trying to change your job to a different title, it's always easier to actually transition or change to a different company, because the people that you're working with right now, your current managers, they're going to see you from a specific perspective. So if they see you as a developer, it's going to be much harder to convince them that, hey, you're now a project manager. So it's actually easier to go to a new company and present yourself as a project manager, because they don't have any of the previous context. They're not going to see you from the lens that your current company sees you in, and your current company sees you as a developer in this scenario. And lastly, what I want to share is that in this fourth step here, when you're updating your resume and you're updating your LinkedIn profile, don't be afraid to get a little creative with your job titles. So if you're working as an operations manager or you're working as a logistics coordinator, don't be afraid to change those titles to reflect more of a project-oriented type role. This is industry practice. There's nothing wrong with doing this at all. And in fact, the best recruiters, the best hiring managers expect you to do this and want you to do this so that you can present yourself in the correct way that you want to be seen. And so this is very effective, especially for when you're applying for jobs and getting screened by the ATS or the applicant tracking system. You want to make sure that you're hitting on keywords and that the job titles reflect the jobs that you're applying for. And then lastly, step 5, what I would do to make sure or increase my success in becoming a project manager, this probably applies for any role that you're trying to really get, is I would take a systematic approach in my job search, in my job hunt. So I would be using a tracker to track, where am I applying? Where am I getting responses back from? Which resume seems to be working? And also conducting follow-ups with people that I need to reach out to, because all of these activities are going to increase my chances of success. There's a great quote by Peter Drucker, I think, who says that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. In other words, if you're unable to tell me how many applications you submitted this week, how many people you spoke to, how many responses you've gotten back, how many interviews do you have lined up, if you can't give me that data, that means you're not taking a systematic approach and you're just spraying and praying. In other words, you're just trying to throw your resume out as many places as you can and hoping that one of them lands. And so there you go. That would be my process for transitioning into project management. I would, number 1, pay attention to actually learning what project management is like on a day-to-day basis. I'm not talking about theory here. I'm talking about the practical day-to-day project management. What does that actually look like? And try to get a good understanding of what that is before kind of diving into the next steps in the process. The second step in the process, again, is actually gaining hands-on experience and reinforcing my knowledge that I learned in step 1 into actually doing this thing myself, actually going through the project lifecycle and being able to increase my vocabulary, increase my familiarity with the whole project management discipline. Step 3, I would focus on my soft skills and make sure that I continue to develop those, because those are the skills that are going to help me be successful in an interview and on the job. Step 4, I would now start to create a consistent narrative in my LinkedIn and resume profile. And then step 5, I would take a systematic approach in applying for jobs, reaching out to recruiters directly, reaching out to hiring managers directly, tracking everything in an Excel or Google Sheet, and taking a bit more of a organized approach rather than just spraying and praying. So hopefully you liked this video and you found some value. Let me know where you are in your transition journey. Love to hear from you guys. And if you want to continue seeing more content and more stuff related to project management, like this video, subscribe to my channel. I got a lot more stuff coming out, and I'll see you on the next one.